A high forehead topped by dishevelled black hair, a sickly pallor, and a look of deep intelligence and deeper exhaustion in his dark, sunken eyes.
Wait, is this fucking play about us?
Edgar Allan Poe's image is not just instantly recognizable, it's perfectly suited to his reputation.
Big reputation.
Becoming an Edgar Allan Poe.
So the reason I'm wearing a skeleton onesie is because Edgar Allan Poe is
dead.
And I was listening to some Phoebe Bridgers. Okay, so the reason I want to see if I can become an Edgar Allan Poe is because I used to be really obsessed with BuzzFeed Unsolved, specifically BuzzFeed Unsolved True Crime. And I remember they did a video on Edgar Allan Poe. Really liked that video and I wanted to like read more of his works after that. So I went ahead and got the complete poetry of Edgar Allan Poe and all of his short stories into one like Penguin classic book. I just want to know like what was in his head, you know, just like why is he so iconic? I don't know, I just want to like read it. Like, is that so wrong? Like yeah, I never really actually learned a lot about Edgar Allan Poe. Like I only learned a lot about him through that BuzzFeed Unsolved video. I never knew that his death was unsolved. Like nobody actually knows like the real reason as to why he died. And I was like, wow, he lived a really sad life and yet his works are so iconic, just like, you know, every other fucking artist like Van Gogh and like Edvard Munch and that like fucking crazy one insane artist that everyone does like video essays about. I forgot what his name was. So for school I only had to read The Fall of the House of Usher.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I really liked the writing. I had to do like a whole essay on it and shit about like imagery and atmosphere and the use of language, blah blah blah, everything that you fucking do in English. And you know what? Edgar Allan Poe kind of reminds me of Charlie Chaplin. Hey, editing me, can you like find out if there's a correlation between Edgar Allan Poe and Charlie Chaplin? Thank you. Here's my response. Holy fuck. Bitch, I'm gonna fucking die. Like, he married his 13-year-old cousin. His 13-year-old cousin? He was 27. Okay, so far from what I'm gathering from Poe's love life is that he has 0 rings. And I think he died while he was like engaged with his like one true love or something. That sucks. Oh my god, do you guys know Kevin from TikTok? The one that everyone used to say like, oh, female gaze, female gaze. He's literally Edgar Allan Poe. Literally, that's Edgar. Like, that's Edgar. He could be Edgar Allan Poe or a Happy Tree Friends character. Okay, so I'm at the park and I'm reading this and I can't relate to it. I mean, duh, because it was fucking written like in the 19th century, but one thing that is really interesting to me is how Edgar Allan Poe writes women. I think during the time that Poe was writing a lot of his poetry, it was when the patriarchy was starting to be recognized as an oppressive system, but obviously they weren't fucking doing anything about it. I think he was like a feminist girly, way ahead of his time. So that's a slay. Also, I read this essay about like women and Poe and I really liked it, so you should go read it if you like reading essays. Edgar Allan Poe fucking put me in a reading slump for some reason. Let me elaborate. So I read this, which is like all of his poetry, and I really liked it, but I like nothing really like stuck out to me. Like, I know why he doesn't like ravens, but I like ravens. Like, what are you gonna do about it? You know what I mean? I'm just not an Edgar Allan Poe. Actually, his poem about the raven kind of reminded me of this book called Grief is a Thing with Feathers. And I really liked that book. I think you guys should read that. Now that I'm thinking about it, why did I make this video? I am a very academically inclined individual, but it doesn't really translate very well. Yeah, it just doesn't yeah.
You could gaze into the future.
Edgar Allan Poe wrote a sonnet dedicated to science, and it was basically just him shitting on the prospect of science and how rationalism is destroying imagination, beauty, and art or whatever. And it was really interesting because this is like still an ongoing debate, especially now with like AI and art. And this is the only page in this book that I like wrote down an annotation for, and it just says Bjork. So for context, Bjork did this interview and she was basically talking about how she was scared of television.
This is what an Icelandic poet told me once, and I became so scared to television that I always got headaches when I watched it. But then later on, when I got my Danish book on television, I stopped being afraid because I read the truth, the scientific truth, which is much better. You shouldn't let poets lie to you.
And I thought that was like relevant in the discussion that Edgar Allan Poe was raising.
It really wasn't, actually, but okay.
Another poem that I really liked is Evening Star. And the reason I like this poem so much is because it reminds me of this one song called By Starlight by the Smashing Pumpkins. And the Smashing Pumpkins is my favorite band because they're actually one of the reasons why My Chemical Romance exists. And if you know me, you know that I am a slut for Gerard Way. I will not elaborate further on. Thank you very much. Okay, next. My favorite poem from this book is probably Spirits of the Dead.
Okay, so I kind of failed to elaborate as to why I love this poem so much, but the first stanza just reminds me of the Look What You Made Me Do music video by Taylor Swift, and the rest of the poem just creates this beautiful atmosphere that I really, really like.
I was like gobsmacked. And I feel like this is like one of the only poems from this book that I will be thinking about on a daily basis. Like, it's just so good, it's so short, it's to the point, and I love it. I love it a lot. I did film myself reacting to this TED Ed video about why you should read Edgar Allan Poe, but I wasn't saying anything insightful, so I just like deleted most of the footage. But basically, one thing that stood out to me was that Edgar Allan Poe was that bitch for getting straight to the point. And it kind of makes sense that he only lived for like 40 years because that man did not waste any time. I was able to read all of his poems in one day, which is probably really bad because I didn't really take the time to really like soak in what he was trying to say. I just kind of read it like it was a novel. One thing I did notice about like all of his poems was that there were no like filler words or filler thoughts. It was just poetry.
You guys, I swear I'm not this like stupid. Okay, just thought I'd add this in, but Edgar Allan Poe's longest poem is called Al-Araf, I think. Sorry if my pronunciation sucks. I can't even speak English properly, so cut me some slack. But his longest poem is that, and it's I think around like 422 lines. And the entire poem references the Quran, which is the holy book of Islam. And although I couldn't really understand what the poem was actually about, it was really interesting to see the fact that he referenced Islam during a period in which Christianity was kind of like the end-all be-all. Wait, no. The Romantic period was literally... Wait, no. The Romantic period was like religion. So does my point still stand? Wait. Guys, I literally study history. This is really bad. Okay, if you have studied that poem in any way, let me know what you think of it. Now I'm like wondering if I'm like completely wrong about this or something, but oh well. I just read all of his short stories, and The Fall of the House of Usher is still the best. And I'm really glad that I actually learned about that in school. I can't wait to have nightmares. The other ones were kind of just forgettable. Oops, sorry. So I won't be talking about them because that's boring. But yeah, I think I'm gonna end the video here. Like, this is boring. This is boring content. Bye. And I see why he's scared of ravens now. Actually, I don't.